The sound is almost too small to notice. A child coughs once, then again, the family sitting around the fire barely reacts. 10,000 years ago, a cough was not unusual. A fever was not unusual. A cut on the hand was not unusual. What was unusual was surviving. The child stares into the flames. His mother watches him quietly. The fever has been rising for days. There are no hospitals. No antibiotics. No surgery. No blood tests. No diagnosis. Only waiting. Only hope. Only the slow negotiation between a human body and an indifferent world. Most people imagine that before modern medicine, humans died mainly from dramatic causes. Predators. Wars. Natural disasters. The occasional mammoth hunt gone wrong. It is a comforting image. And it is almost completely wrong. For most of human history, death rarely arrived with spectacle. It arrived quietly. Inside the body, a small infection, a contaminated drink, a mosquito, a difficult birth, a wound no larger than a fingernail. The true killers of humanity were often invisible. And that may be the most terrifying part of all, because for nearly every human who has ever lived, death was not an exception. It was the expectation. Today, many people assume that old age is the natural end of life. That assumption exists only because modern medicine changed reality so recently that we have forgotten what real it looked like before. For almost all of human existence, growing old was a remarkable achievement, not because humans were biologically incapable of long life, but because the world rarely allowed them to reach it. Researchers studying ancient skeletons noticed something strange. Many individuals who survived childhood possessed bodies capable of living far longer than their average lifespan suggests. The problem was never simply aging. The problem was surviving everything else. And there was always something else. Always. A parasite in the water, a bacterium in a wound, a winter that arrived too early, a summer that stayed too long, a harvest that failed, a birth that became a funeral. Human beings did not spend most of history battling old age. They spent most of history trying to reach it, and that realization changes everything. Because once we look closely, a disturbing pattern emerges. The greatest threat to humanity was rarely nature's violence. It was nature's intimacy. The deadliest things were often the things closest to us. The water we drank. The food we ate. The animals we loved. The people we touched. The air we breathed. Civilization itself would eventually become one of the most dangerous inventions humans ever created. But that story begins much earlier. Long before cities. Long before kingdoms. Long before written history. It begins in a landscape where every human alive belonged to a species that should not have survived at all. Imagine the world 100,000 years ago. No roads. No walls. No lights visible from space. Only scattered groups of humans moving through immense wilderness. To modern eyes, it might seem like freedom. The reality was closer to permanent vulnerability. Every sunrise represented another negotiation with uncertainty. Food was uncertain. Weather was uncertain. Safety was uncertain. Tomorrow itself was uncertain. Yet surprisingly, lions were not the greatest threat. Neither were wolves nor bears. Predators certainly killed humans, but compared to what was coming, predators were almost insignificant. A lion kills one person, a bacterium can kill an entire village, and unlike lions, bacteria never sleep. They never stop hunting. They do not negotiate. They do not fear. They do not hate. Most people think humanity conquered the planet because of strength. That is not what happened. Humans conquered the planet because of intelligence, but intelligence came with a hidden cost. The larger and more connected human societies became, the more opportunities invisible organisms gained. Every fire shared, every meal shared. Every shelter shared. Every touch, every breath. Human success became an ecosystem, and other life forms were evolving inside that ecosystem alongside us. Tiny organisms, ancient organisms, patient organisms. While humans built tools, pathogens were conducting their own evolutionary experiments. While humans learned language, microbes learned transmission. While humans built communities, disease learned how to spread through them. It was an arms race nobody knew existed. And for thousands of years, humanity was losing. Then something happened. Round 12,000 years ago, a revolution transformed the human story. Agriculture. Most history books celebrate agriculture, the beginning of civilization. The foundation of cities. The source of culture. The birth of progress. All true, but there was another side to the story. A darker side. The first farmers unknowingly created ideal conditions for some of humanity's greatest killers. People began living closer together. Waste accumulated. Water became contaminated. Animals moved inside human settlements. The distance between species collapsed. Researchers now believe many devastating diseases emerged from this intimacy. The cow, the pig. The chicken. The goat. Creatures that helped build civilization also helped reshape humanity's relationship with death. The irony is difficult to ignore. The very invention that allowed populations to grow also created entirely new ways for populations to die. Civilization solved one problem and created another. Again and again throughout history. Humanity would discover the same lesson. Every advancement carries a shadow, and sometimes that shadow arrives centuries later. A crowded settlement appears peaceful from a distance. Smoke rises from cooking fires. Children run through narrow paths. Families gather around food. Life seems stable, but beneath the surface, invisible wars are already beginning. Parasites entering drinking water. Bacteria moving through wounds. Viruses searching for hosts. Entire worlds colliding inside bodies that have no idea what is happening. The people living there could not see their enemy. They could only see the consequences. The fever. The weakness. The cough. The burial. And perhaps that is what made these killers so psychologically terrifying. You cannot fight what you cannot see. You cannot flee what already lives inside you. You cannot reason with a disease. It does not care who you are. It does not care what you believe. It does not care how desperately your family needs you. It simply follows biology. And biology can be astonishingly indifferent. Yet even disease was not humanity's only executioner, because some of the deadliest moments in human history arrived not through infection, but through birth. And that may be the most shocking reality of all. For much of history, bringing life into the world was one of the most dangerous things a human being could do. A process we now often consider routine was once among the leading causes of death. A mother could survive childhood, survive disease, survive famine, survive violence, only to die creating the next generation. The species survived because individuals paid the price. And nowhere is nature's indifference more visible than in that exchange. But the deeper researchers investigate the past, the stranger the story becomes, because the true killer before modern medicine was never one thing, not disease, not famine, not childbirth, not violence. It was vulnerability itself, a world in which every small problem could become a fatal one. A world where a scratch could become sepsis, a tooth infection could become a death sentence, a contaminated meal could erase an entire future. The modern world has made many of these dangers feel distant, almost imaginary, yet the organisms that haunted our ancestors never disappeared. The bacteria are still here, the viruses are still here, the parasites are still here. Waiting. Evolving. Adapting. The difference is that today, between them and us, stands one of the greatest achievements in human history. Modern medicine. But perhaps the most profound lesson is not how medicine changed death. It is how recently it did, because if we compress all of human existence into a single day, modern medicine appears only in the final seconds before midnight. Everything before that moment belonged to another reality, a reality where survival itself was extraordinary, where reaching old age was an achievement, where every generation lived under the constant shadow of forces they could neither understand nor control. And perhaps that should leave us with an uncomfortable thought. For thousands of years, humanity believed death was the natural order of things. Then, in a remarkably brief moment of history, we pushed that darkness back, not completely, never completely, only temporarily, because beneath every hospital, Every vaccine, every antibiotic, every surgical instrument, the ancient world is still waiting. Silent. Patient. And far closer than we like to imagine.